When the president was inaugurated and then he made that brain fart, yes, it is. He made the pronouncement that subsidy was gone. I think it didn't even take 24 hours before the cascading effect started to come to life.
The whole of the constitution need to be changed. There are places that need to be checked. There are some people that are supposed to be removed from the helm of some affairs.
We can see that it is not working. And obviously they will not change it because it favors them.
350 billion naira, you cannot pay 150,000 naira minimum wage.
For me, reverting to 100 naira is not feasible. Whether you revert it to 50 naira, things are not going to go back.
Huge protests are shaking things up. People are standing up against tough times and calling for a change. Stick around as we dive into what's happening and why.
Black and white, black and white. Truth no they hide, we go set things right. Black and white, black and white. Clarity in all my shades tonight.
My name is Omar Musti. I'm the host of Black and White podcast. With me is Ibrahim Usman Wali, a lawyer, a private attorney, an active citizen, and a ranter. Oh yes. And we have Elizabeth Akujobi. She's a fitness enthusiast and a linguist. She also writes sometimes. And I have Biva Maguni, an OAP, a documentary filmmaker, a newscaster, and more. And he's also an active citizen. So today, we want to talk about the voice of reason, the recent protest.
Let's start by discussing the 12 demands of the protesters. Revert petrol pump price to 100 naira per litre.
The main issue here is why float the naira? It's the main issue that is taking us, I think, is taking us into total hardship. It's not really bringing back fuel. And I don't think this government is ready to revert to the old ways. I don't think so. What do you think?
Well, for starters, I feel like the protesters have already made their demands. Revert the PMS back to 100 naira. So we can differ on the amount, right? And this is why it's a negotiation. This is why it's a protest, right? You make your demands, and the government is going to come and do its thing as well. It's going to counter the demand, and then we'll meet at the middle. Maybe 100 naira is not feasible, but the reversal of PMS, I think, is a very, very legitimate demand. I think that we can all agree that, and I agree with your argument on floating the naira, but we can all agree that the level of inflation that we suffer today, actually, started. Of course, Nigeria has been on a downward spiral in terms of inflation. The inflation rates have been going high, but when the president was inaugurated and then he made that brain fart, because I call it a brain fart because there was no consultation of any sort. It just came from his head. He made the yes, it is. He made the pronouncement that subsidy was gone. I think it didn't even take 24 hours before the cascading effect started to come to life. But it was his decision, and it is his decision to reverse it. And I don't agree that it cannot be reversed. It doesn't make any sense to say that at this point of Nigeria's growth that we cannot subsidize ourselves. In fact, Nigerians need subsidy for at least 50 years until they get on their feet and they are able to really manage the resources of production and enterprises such that they can pay tax. That you can say, okay, let's float all of these things and let's do all these economic theories. Even the advanced economies, America and all these places, they subsidize their citizens. I agree that it is a reasonable demand.
For me, reverting to 100 naira is not feasible, and it would be unwise for the country at the moment. If in the first place, after the removal of fuel subsidy, or before the removal of fuel subsidy, it provided some level of leverage for the people. Probably there would have been adequate preparation for transportation, and secondly, you managed it well, and not these taxes upon taxes that you're increasing on a daily basis. And then Nigerians on the other side know how to manipulate each other. Now, whether you revert it to 50 naira, things are not going to go back to the way they used to be. So the only thing I would say is, if at all, you can revert it back to some, just give the people some level of succor, and then manage everything and be sincere. Sincerity is all Nigerians need right now, not someone coming in and playing around with the whole issue. It doesn't make sense. He has not been sincere.
That particular amount is, I think, is what I'm having an issue with. We're just telling you that we need it to be reduced. Like, that's the point. The point we're trying to make is
negotiation.
Thank you. It's a negotiation. Let us negotiate, because it's like you wake up in the morning, like you're going to work, and like, is there fuel scarcity? Today there's fuel scarcity. Tomorrow there's no fuel scarcity. Yeah. Next tomorrow there's a line. Upper week there's. Do you get? So even if it feels like maybe the price we are putting it to be, they will say it's something that's not achievable. But what we're trying to say is for it to be reduced. Right now it's almost 700 naira.
If you can get it,
Thank you.
1,000 plus in some states.
Like it's hard to get, and then the price is like, really. We're just trying. All we're trying to say is bring it down.
Number 2, combat insecurity and hunger.
First of all, it is the duty of the government to decide how they intend to do this, to combat these things. Okay, the argument against this particular demand is that it is not measurable. You can't measure. What do you mean combat hunger and insecurity? But there are actions that if the governments are going to take today, you can reasonably tell that, okay, maybe in 6 months, maybe in 2 months, maybe in 3 months, okay, change the service chiefs, service heads, for example. They're proven to be ineffective, right? Whether it's the NSA or ministers of defense. And by the way, and it's very important that I mentioned the Minister of Defense, Bello Turji, a renowned, known, notorious bandit who has claimed lives and kidnapped criminal, terrorists, bandits, whatever, who has kidnapped people and maimed and killed people, has pointed at the Minister of State for Defense, or Minister of Defense for State, and said that you are part of the sponsors of insecurity in Zamfara. Yeah. But he remains the Minister of State today. So if you, I think that both the Minister of Defense for State and the Minister of Defense generally, who were both failed governors, both in Zamfara and I can't remember, but they're in Jigawa, they don't have any reason to be there ab initio. So if you are going to, say for example, sack them, it gives a message. It gives that, and likewise hunger as well. But I think for hunger, you even see that, they even went ahead to list some things. But I think that if you are going to maybe reduce PMS, I think it's also going to fall part of...
our first demand can help the second one.
Yeah, so it's cascading, importations and securing the farm and all of these things, So there are far-reaching measures that they can take. Of course,
because there are things we produce in Nigeria, but it's still expensive.
It's expensive because
you can't even get it to eat.
Just like when they told Buhari, when Buhari didn't want to bend to the IMF about floating the naira, he said, we import basically everything from rice to toothpick.
For me, if you are first of all able to combat insecurity, hunger will reduce, because farmers have not been going to their farms. A lot of people were killed in their farms. The Middle Belt stretch entirely was affected, from southern Kebbi, northern Niger, the FCT, down to southern Borno and all of that. These are the Middle Belt regions and all of. So if you can combat insecurity, you will be able to combat hunger. Now, in combating insecurity, you should be very, very firm and decisive. Past leaders who were fingered in sponsoring terrorism, or they have issues, they have hands in, kind of use the security agencies, get them arrested, prosecute them and all of that. A lot of these things, lots of people are involved, and they're in government, and just like you said, we're seeing them every day. Bro, that's the right thing to do right now.
Number 3, close all IDP camps and resettle the campers.
My opinion on closing IDPs is it's a welcome development. But at the end of the day, the whole country is an IDP. Yeah, when we come out and we want to talk about something, they throw rice at us. Is that not what you do to people in the IDPs? I talked about this. There was a day last week I sent out a tweet that the government are treating us as if we are IDPs. And a lot of people jumped at my tweet and said, are we not IDPs? Yes, because there is no food wherever you enter. There is no food, hunger everywhere. And we are probably... So if you are telling the government now to close all IDPs, you are telling the government to close down Nigeria. I believe if we have a working system, a perfect working system, we wouldn't need IDPs. We wouldn't need to even close them. They will close themselves. That's what I think. I don't know whether you say it that way, SC.
Oh yes, well, in terms of the macro aspect of the whole thing, I agree with your submission. But in terms of the micro demand of the protesters, I think that they are right that we need to start talking about, resettling people properly and closing the IDPs. I think that the more the IDPs exist, they just remind us of the fact that, we live in an unsettled and insecure society. So I agree. I remember when, there was a circular or there was a presser where they said that they were allocating 26 billion naira to renovate the headquarters of the Northeast Development Commission, right? So that 26 billion naira in itself that they're using to renovate the HQ of the commission that's supposed to resettle the IDPs and ensure that life is up and running would have got a long way in actually achieving, the main aim itself, as opposed to really just taking care of the edifice of the commission itself. So I agree that we need to have a timeline. It's important to have timestamps to this. Obviously, you can't just say you close the IDP today or tomorrow, because people can still not go back to their settlements. But it feeds back to the previous demands, insecurity. So as long as insecurity and hunger are solved, I think naturally IDPs would dissolve. So yes, we need to have a program, that's deliberate and centered around closing IDPs. I agree that we need to have an active program in that regard. Not a new committee or a new commission, by the way, but a program under one of the agencies of government. Because you know that this committee and commission virus is adding to the burden in the cost of governance in the country.
Yeah, I think I support him, because I remember that sometimes at home, I stay in Gariki, some of these people come out to ask us for food. So I'm confused. Don't they, the plan wasn't to take care of them, so they actually leave and go out and start begging and seeking for help, and it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
IDPs are supposed to be temporary.
Yes, but they still go around begging for aid, asking for help and aid and all. So.
Oh, well, for me, I think it is long overdue. But like you put it, if the entire Nigerians are internally displaced persons, well, you've not really been to an IDP camp. It is bad. It is long overdue. It is way beyond what you think or feel. The IDP situation is pathetic. When you live with people where, it's raining, there's no roof over your head. I've been there multiple times. I took some foodstuff, clothing. It's the indignity, the dehumanized situation these people live. It's crazy. It's high time they're resettled. Secondly, there are people whose homes were destroyed, right? There were no internally displaced camps for them. So they just live like that. Rebuild their communities, their houses, and whatever it is. It is long overdue.
Number 4, total electoral reform and independent probe into the electoral budget of 355 billion naira.
Total electoral reform. This electoral reform would be very hard, because the people that are supposed to pass these laws, that are supposed to amend these laws, are the people that these laws, the new laws, the reform will not going to favor. Because we already know how we do elections in Nigeria. We already know how they feel about electoral reforms. Our constitution needs to be overhauled. It needs a total check as to what people check this, as to what people change this. Because at the end of the day, if you want electoral reforms, what we want is not what these people do. Okay, case in point, an example, the case of local government autonomy. Just between the legislative, the executive, how the president signed the bill into law, and how the governors don't want to put it to work. The whole of the constitution need to be changed. There are places that need to be checked. There are some people that are supposed to be removed from the helm of some affairs, because at the end of the day, the reform we want, these people will not give it to us because it's not going to favor them.
That's why we're protesting.
That's the truth.
That's why we're protesting.
I don't even think the electoral, I don't think it's something we need to come and start questioning. We can see that it is not working. And obviously, they will not change it because it favors them. The same people who are in this, because imagine you trying to reform it or trying to change the statistic or the way it is.
It makes sense, because if you spend that much and then on election day you're telling us that you're having system failures, we need to know how you actually spend the money. But it just feeds into the overall electoral reform thing. So it needs to be more transparent and they need to be more accountable. We shouldn't have to ask them to give us a yes. So post-election they should give us this breakdown as a matter of routine. So I think that if you have a provision in the law that mandates them to do this, and of course with the implementation mechanism, I think it feeds into the transparency and accountability that we want to see in our public space. So yes, it is a valid demand, absolutely.
There's this phrase, this common phrase. They say if you explain Nigeria to someone that is non-Nigerian, they will think you are going mad.
If they understand it, that is.
they won't understand. Because how can you come and tell me that you spent 350 billion naira just to run an election, and at the end of the day we are having failures? We are having electronic failures. We are having issues of electoral materials not getting to some polling units, because we are having inadequacies. You see, these numbers, whenever they call them, they break my head. I'll be like, do we really have this? Is this real? Like 350 billion naira.
There's money for everything, but you know.
Like we have money for everything to run things. You hear them going out, but we don't have money to take care of ourselves. Like, you cannot pay 150,000 naira minimum wage. Like, it breaks me. I don't even understand.
Well, I think that's a wild goose chase if it is part of the demands we are asking for. It's okay to demand for it, but just be rest assured that we are not going to get it. 355 billion naira, I mean, and you know how the election went. So it's not something that is achievable. Not as long as this government is in power, it's not going to happen. It's just we dreaming. It's a dream.
Yeah, but we have a right to dream, you know, and I don't think that it helps to curtail people's dreams.
Not all dreams are like visions.
When we started ranting, by the way, they said that, you know, what we're doing was an expansive delusion. You know, we want to bring change, you know, to Nigeria. Who are we and stuff like that. But I'm ready to be called a delusional.
We have to
human.
be realistic. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think it's a realistic.
It's a demand. Other demands
I think probing an institution is realistic. I don't think it's difficult. They sent the money to them. They use it in a particular way.
Everybody to shut them up to make sure that nothing is done.
He's trying to tell you if you feel it's delusional. If you feel it's delusional, he agrees to be. Yeah, so there's no. Because it's a form of protest.
It's just a request that will not. It's something that will not happen.
But at the end of the day, you asked for it.
We are just demanding.
Your voice is being heard.
We know that this people are not going to do it.
In the next decade, in next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if they don't do it, we'll continue to make the demand. This is a continuous struggle. I don't think that any protester intends to achieve everything, you know, via the protest. But at least let it be known that, you know, we disagree with the status quo. That is the nature of protest. It's to, you know, pass a message. And I think that what people actually fail to understand is that, you know, really protests are a way to really galvanize the mind of the people. Even if you don't succeed in terms of achieving the demands, at least you open the door for people who are
Who's going to carry out the independent probe? Who?
When you say independence, basically you're saying that you know, the person who's going to carry out the probe must not be part of INEC. That's basically what it is. So it can be anybody. It's not as if independent of the entirety of the government, but independence of INEC.
5 billion naira, and whoever it is in Nigeria, well.
It's the status quo that you're trying to maintain that people are protesting against. So it's not, people understand and agree with you.
I understand where he's coming from. I understand where he's coming from. At the end of the day, we get 3 senators, 2 members, House of Reps, and they will be the one, this one will be the chairman, this one will be the secretary.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's the same circle of people who don't trust.
At least we have a probe.
That's where he's
and at the end of the day,
probe.
the report is going to come out the way they want it to be. I understand.
We want a probe, so the probe can be biased. And then we will not pursue for an unbiased probe. But we don't have anything at all today. So even if they are going to do whatever it is they want to do, I think it's a progress for them to actually do the probing.
Number 5, Immediate release of all NSAS protesters still in detention.
This is an absolute demand that I stand for. Absolutely.
It's sad to even think that some of them are
Yes.
still in prison till now.
If not, some weeks ago that I started seeing tweets, I didn't know that people they arrested 2020 because of NSAS protest are still in prison. But yeah, this is Nigeria. Somebody have been in prison for the past 15 years because he stole a chicken. The system is flawed. At the end of the day, the system is...
And the court didn't even convict him, by the way.
The court didn't convict him. They didn't take him to court. He's just in prison. Because one magistrate has been adjourning, has not been on seat, and at the end of the day, they will forget him in prison.
Absolutely.
The whole thing, every single aspect of this country you touch is flawed. Because it's either marred by inadequacies
Pathetic to the chicken thief. A lot of people there aren't even criminals in any way. They are absolutely innocent. So you can imagine what it is for them.
So this demand, I feel this demand, if there are any protesters, legitimate protesters, not thugs, as I mentioned earlier.
But that's the thing.
Not thugs that came.
If they are thugs,
they should be tried.
Try them.
Yeah,
now
I
and
mean they should be
them
tried.
by
Convict.
virtue of
They should be
evidence.
convicted.
So
They
it's
shouldn't
not-
be kept like
Yes,
that. They
yes.
should be convicted. They should take them.
Okay.
They should face what they are there for.
So
I
it's
think
not a
it's
matter
a
of-
legitimate demand. That one of the most legitimate demands that can easily be met. That could easily be met. It should. I think it's one of the things I actually stand for.
Absolutely. We don't even have to say it's something we need to think twice or whatever it is. Not just release them, like he said, persecute them if they are found guilty, whether they are thugs or not. These people, I don't think any of them has been persecuted or whatever it is. But this is not even time for persecution or whatever. Free them, let them go. People died during that protest. Yes. All right? And then, if the government is sincere, if they're serious, if they mean business, there are some thugs that are out there. There are names. There are people that were fingered during the NSAS protest. Find them, prosecute them.
Number 6, implementation of the living wage of 300K.
Again, when it comes to specific numbers, it's always open to negotiations. But what is a living wage? Okay, the new minimum wage is 70K. Right, that is what they agreed on. But what metrics did they use to actually, settle on 70K? They keep saying that some employers can pay, some states can pay. Gombe State Governor, he said he can't pay. I don't know if he's going to pay from his own personal money. I don't understand. But what is the mathematics behind it? How did they arrive at 70K? It's important to ask all these questions so that we know if indeed this is what they can do, right? But the truth is, 70K is not going to do anything for anybody. Frankly, how much is
the whole negotiation issue wasn't transparent, and at the end of the day, the representative of the people in all this are the labor. Yeah, we don't even trust the labor.
The labor are the representative of workers under the labor.
Workers,
about 30% of them.
I said people. I mean the workers.
Okay.
The representative of the workers is the labor. We were in Nigeria. Okay, imagine we were here deliberating. Labor is going on strike. We were here deliberating, negotiating, and the next thing I saw was picture ops from the labor leader in, was it Switzerland or somewhere?
Serious. The labor leaders have
the labor leaders in Nigeria.
serious.
They are people. They are also people for hire.
Yes.
Like you are a labor leader and you are always seen around these politicians that you are not supposed to be romancing. You'll be seen, your body language alone has sold you out.
Nigerian clowns. Joe Ajero.
Ajero is a clown.
Reno Omokri.
Ajero is a clown.
What's this guy, Niger Delta militant?
Asari
Dokubo is the biggest clown of them all.
FFK.
Clown
See,
as well.
they are the biggest clowns. I mean, I know we have in Nigeria. But then looking at it this way, asking for 300K as minimum wage is not in tandem with the number one demand. If you want to reduce the cost of fuel, right? Maybe you want to bring it to 250, 200 or thereabout, and you're asking for 300 as minimum wage. Businesses are going to crumble. People cannot, the private sector is going to suffer. The government can afford, to do this. What about those in the private sector?
The law recognizes this. The law is that businesses or employers with less than 25 staff are not subject to the minimum wage. I saw the National Assembly leader, the Senate president, coming and saying that even your drivers and your house helps. And I wonder, didn't he read the law that he passed? The law is there that if you have 25 employees and less, you are not subjected to the minimum wage.
You are not subjected.
But still, businesses are still going to suffer. If you are paying
Why?
300K, I mean, whether you have 100 staff and you are asking for minimum wage of 300K, that's on the high side. That's just me. And
Did you see the profit margin for banks last year? If you look at the profit margin, do you think that it's out of place to pay all their staff even 500K
You are
minimum?
looking at the big corporations.
Yeah,
right?
that is what the
What about the
minimum. That
smaller
is what the
ones?
act is. That is why they said 25. I mean, if you have more than 25 staff,
25.
it is
So if you
assumed that
have
you are a
less than
big corporation.
25,
then
what
you are a
happens
small
to them?
corporation.
So we will sit down because we're less than 25 in a company. We're watching other people earn minimum wage of 300K, and what happens to us? How much are we
That
going to
is
be paid?
why it doesn't suffice for everybody, and that is why we are now protesting for
Then
all these other things.
it's not fair then. A minimum
no,
wage
that's
should
what
be
the
able
law
to cater
is.
to everybody. Like should be applicable to everybody.
Yeah,
For me, if we're asking for the fuel price to go down, minimum wage 300K
Why?
doesn't make sense.
What's the nexus? Why?
Things are definitely the reason why people are asking, or Labour is asking. There's people need to cater for themselves. So apparently, if we're to, like I said earlier, it's fuel is brought back, let's say, to 250, 200 per liter. Definitely, things are going to go down.
No, but
so
you said
wouldn't have
earlier
reasons
that
to demand
you
for
said
that
earlier, though,
bogus
you said
amount of
earlier
money.
that even if it went down to 200 or 300, things are not going to come down.
Not
You said that was
complete-
your
no, I
position.
said I didn't say
earlier.
automatically. Don't forget.
That was your position
Please.
earlier. You said
You
it.
heard what I
remember
didn't
it.
say.
No, you said it.
You
You
heard
said
what I
it.
didn't say.
That even if when you were discussing on that demand, that even if we were to get it down, it's not going to affect.
It's not going to be 100%. That's the idea.
But now you're now saying that.
No, if we're asking for fuel to go down 300K,
So the
it's
thing
too
is,
much.
Yeah, why?
minimum
There
wage-
has to be a why. Why is it
minimum
too much?
wage-
Sorry, please. Do you know how much each of the legislative advisors of a senator earn? They earn more than about 80 to 90% of civil servants in Nigeria. Bashir Ahmad used to earn about 900 and something thousand.
That's a senior legislative aide.
So compare
You
him to a
expect the driver
senior
to also
doctor,
earn the
a
same?
senior lawyer in the civil service. 300K
driver
is
and
too
the
much
gate
for them.
man.
But for a senior legislative aide who doesn't do anything by the way,
Let's
but
not
post
demand for
tweets.
something that will create anarchy for us in the future.
Ah,
Just like
come
we
on, what is
started talking
anarchy?
earlier.
What does anarchy mean? What is anarchy? How does this lead to anarchy?
Number 7, compulsory free education from primary to secondary school. Education grant at tertiary level.
This is like part of their promises all the time. They bring up free education, free education, free. We never see free education. In fact, then in Imo State, Richard was saying, free education, come to school. My dad was like, go to the university, it's free. It was not free. We paid. So they always bring up this free education, and they do not do it. They're asking for the free education is from primary to secondary school.
Basic education.
Basic education. Is it so difficult? It sounds like it's so undoable. Is it
More
so
than free
difficult?
education, in fact, they need to invest in the people at that level. Not just the free education, even invest further. Right? Because without education at that level, the country isn't going anywhere. You are not doing anybody any favor. You are doing the country needs to subsidize its people to be educated, because for the people to participate in their politics, with the right education and mental, they need that basic education. You're not helping anybody but the country. The country needs to be subsidized at that level. There's no doubt about it. So more than even free education, they need to even pump more money at that basic level to take care of their other needs as well.
Was that why the last administration started this school feeding, this Fox school feeding program?
Oh my God.
Because at the end of the day, you introduce school feeding, and it's like you remove subsidy from education, because everything just boom.
It was a charade. It was a fraud.
From paying 18,500 naira as a registration fees in Nigerian universities to paying 150k, 140k, 200 and something thousand naira. So I was like, the whole thing was confusing to me. it kept me thinking, what are these guys onto? What is it that they are doing? Free education, trying to subsidize education, trying to give free education by introducing school feeding programs for primary schools and some secondary schools, then increasing. You see, the whole thing was confusing. That's why
because
I said
they don't have a uniform framework.
That's why I said sometimes when you try to explain Nigeria to
You don't
somebody
have
that
to
is
use
not
your
Nigerian,
brain
they think you are really
like
crazy.
to think about Nigeria. Like you take out this brain, then pick. We have a Nigerian brain that processes and helps
So
us
my brother has
analyze.
been using since.
Yes, so you use your Nigerian brain to analyze it, because you can't be factual. No, you can't be. You will definitely run mad. So just
Yeah, I'm ready to run
Well,
mad.
not just that, free education, skill-based education. Now, if we must move forward, skills must be taught. And in the education, he said investment, they should invest in the education sector. Now, when you look at the number of out-of-school children, over 35 million, that's a disaster in the making. Now, if you don't invest in the education sector, whatever you are seeing today, give us 10 to 15 years.
It's gonna worsen.
Well, it's not the protests they are looking.
The anarchy you're scared of.
The
Yes.
right kind of protest would really come up, and then they can't be able to bribe these guys anymore at that point, because somebody said a day comes where the poor eat the rich. That's where they will see kidnapping. Forget about kidnapping. It's not something serious. By the time you refuse to invest in education. All right? And these guys grow up, 35 million people that didn't go to school. They don't have skills. Problem.
Yeah, like we saw what he was trying to talk about. We saw what happened in Kenya some few weeks ago because of the finance bill. We saw how some members of their parliament were being attacked. The people were tired, they got nothing. And I think I saw a video clip day before yesterday of one senator, Zamfara North. He went to his constituency, he was talking to his people, and those people, they came out. Bamai, they were insulting him. Bamai, Inanu, they were sweat. Like, the people are understanding.
Because they do it seasonally. If you talk to your people every time, a lot, consistently, you have a proper mechanism, proper channel to talk to your people. When you talk, they will not tell you Bama because they saw you yesterday, they saw you last week, 2 weeks ago. So when you do it once in a while and when there's a problem, of course, Bama, why? It's disrespectful and insulting, in fact. They represent the people. It shouldn't have to be a problem before you come back and report to us what's happening.
Number 8, children of all public office holders must attend public schools in the country.
This reminds me of one of my idols then. He knows what I'm talking about. I remember when Rufai enrolled his son in a public school. I don't know whether it's for the camera or anything. I don't think he's still there. But we saw him enroll his son in the public school. He was trying to sell what he has done to improve public schools in Kaduna State by that competency test. Even though a lot of people were against the ways he did, what he came about and the way he carried the whole competency testing. Although knowing the level and the situation of Kaduna State, of the education in the primary school sector in Kaduna State, I am 100% in support of what he did there. Don't ask me why, I know. Some people know.
That's the thing with Nigeria.
At the end of the day,
I know and we know. Why are they not transparent? Say, let it out.
We know these things. You know these things, SC. You know it. You know it.
I know and we know. I don't know anything.
Because you go to some schools, the basic tenets of ABC. Some teachers cannot. They can't. We saw the questions they asked in the competency test. Some teachers could not answer basic 1/2 fraction questions.
So whose fault is it? Who employed the teachers?
That's why whenever we have somebody that wants to sanitize the system, let's allow them do it.
Nobody
But at
stopped
the end
it.
of the day, we are emotional, we are sentimental. We say, okay, these people have
Musti.
been laid off. How
Musti.
are they going to take care of
Musti.
themselves? I don't care how you want to take care of
no,
yourselves.
No.
In that position,
No, there are
in
methods.
that aspect,
There are methods.
what are the methods?
There are methods, right? Look, you don't want to take the people out of employment and to end unemployment when you're trying to reduce your unemployment rates. So you phase them out. You phase them out. Look, you're not fit to be a teacher. You're not fit to be a teacher. That's it, right? So you have.
Find other sectors where they can.
You have 10 more years to. You have 10 more years to go. We are going to phase you out, or whatever it is. If you have any business, whatever, we can give you this amount as a cumulative compensation for what you're supposed to earn in the next 10 years. So that this is a way to do it. You know, this is Nigeria. Look, you have to be sympathetic to Nigerians.
Because we're very
They are
emotional.
coming back. They were coming from the back of a sustained impoverishment. Plus, it's the fault of the employment regime, which goes back to the government anyway.
So
That they have an issue.
So at the end of the day, if you are waiting for a public for a politician in Nigeria to take his son to a public school,
Yeah, but this is about the only demand.
And
This is
this is
about the
where-
only demand.
This is where I agree with him when he said, when we talked about what point was that. But this is a demand. This is something we want to see. It's a right demand. You are a public office holder. Your child should be able to go to a public school.
Should be able to.
That will be able to
bless you.
fix the school. They will definitely find a way. The right teachers, the wrong teachers that are there, find a way, move them to sectors where they can do better. If it means you are going to start retraining these people from the scratch so that they can become competent, do it. If it means you're going to train them in other skills, do it. Or whatever it is, as long as you're a public office holder, your children must go to the school. The nearest
It can be
public school
temporary. It can be
to
for
you.
10 years, 15 years until we fix the problem. Right? They keep saying that we should sacrifice. It's their time to sacrifice as well.
Obviously, they will not want their children to go to like a malfunction school with bad teachers, not enough chairs in the school or what. They will have to make the school system work. That is exactly what we are aiming for. Not because we want to forcefully want to see your child go to a public school. No,
nobody cares,
we are trying to
frankly.
use that to make you reform these schools. Drag and pull your attention to these schools, because we as the masses, we go to those schools. So
I mean,
something.
Paul Kagame, it wasn't magic he did in his country, Rwanda, that, I mean, people had to pull children out of public schools. Public schools in Rwanda are more of like useless right now.
whenever people want to
Private schools.
whenever people want to make reference with Rwanda, I remind them the population of Rwanda. I
What
remind
about
them
the population?
The population. I remind them the size of Rwanda.
What
And
about
I
the size? Do you remind them of where they are
and
coming from in terms
I know.
of the genocide that
in
happened?
1995, just not long
Where
ago.
were they? Where were we?
I know.
at the time?
A good example.
Yeah.
He said not long ago.
Yeah.
And they've
And
gotten to this level.
How-
Yes, what about us?
And what is the system of practice? We know Rwanda would look at it like, this democracy. But you and I know it's not
No, it's a
democracy.
democracy. Why not?
Nigeria.
What's
It's democracy.
I prefer that type of democracy.
You
It's a
prefer that type of...
democracy.
If I have
Me
that
and
kind
you
of
know at the back,
democracy.
it's a full-blown kakistocracy.
What do you mean football?
Ka-
Oh, you and me know how Paul
What do you
Kagame does
know?
his things.
How does he do his things?
You don't know
I'm
how
not
Paul
for. I'm
Kagame
not
do.
pro Paul Kagame or whatever.
You are not for.
frankly. I'm not. I don't have any.
Although I buy into the sentiment that if what Paul Kagame is doing in Rwanda is what will have one leader do for us that will work for us, then be it. So be it.
So that's where sometimes
Most
I always
democracies, most successful democracies, they begin like that. You know, there's somebody who's going to come and really ensure that
Forefront,
those
yes.
who follow him are going to have a path to follow. So that's it.
Because we don't need thieves. We don't need soft leaders.
Number 9. Government must patronize made in Nigeria goods.
It's reasonable. I mean, I just remember the senator who came online and said that, okay, why shouldn't they buy the SUVs that are going to withstand the Nigerian roads? So in that event, we have bad roads. So spending hundreds of billions buying Toyotas every day, and every now and then.
At the end of the day,
although I do not even approve buying the cars at all, whether it is Toyota or
Toyota.
Nord or Innoson, I don't approve
Because
it.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
purchasing a Toyota, purchasing Nord, purchasing Innoson are almost like
But yes,
spending the same amount
our
of
local contents policy needs to be
I
revamped.
understand. Like buy Niger, grow Niger kind of slogan.
Yes.
Buy Niger and grow Niger.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's still wasting taxpayers' money.
Yeah, but for the limited things that they have to buy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
of
if you are
course-
saying the government should patronize us, at the end of the day, we know what government will do. Government patronizing us is government buying stuffs for themselves.
By the way, the government actually patronizes Nigerian businesses. I think without the government, most Nigerian businesses
They will
would
That's
fail.
what
at the end
yeah,
of the day.
yes.
So it's one of those points, those demands that the protesters are demanding that I think it's unnecessary.
Yeah, but I don't
We
like
should
it.
focus-
It's not unnecessary. I
Yeah,
think it's
don't use that
necessary.
word.
You can modify it.
How?
You can modify it and say, okay, for those purchases that you have to make, those purchases that are essential, if there is a Nigerian alternative that fits
Yes.
it, that
Why
that has
should
level
we
of
go for
quality,
it?
it should be the first priority.
Yes.
I feel there are other demands that should come before it. It's a demand that should just.
Yeah,
There
but that
are
is your
other
personal
demands.
opinion.
It's as important.
You didn't even set up the protest, by the way. And it's funny because you say that you're not part of the protest, you're not the leader, you didn't initiate the protest, but you want the protest to take a particular form that conforms with what. If you have certain things that are you're passionate about, lead a protest on them,
Yes.
and God willing will follow you as well. But these people have come up with their demands. I don't think anybody has the right to.
I don't think I disagree with him much because we know our people. I mean, this is Nigeria. So if government must patronize made in Nigeria products, Nigerians should be able to produce quality standard products.
So does it take us back to the government or not? Because do we have an institution that should ensure quality standard or not? Is it working optimally or not? It takes us back to the government.
It's just a demand. It's just a demand.
So we'll add your own demand to ensure quality standards in Nigeria are up to global standards. Thank you.
Number 10. Transition to unicameral legislature.
Basically, we have two types of legislatures, a bicameral and a unicameral legislature. Bicameral simply means we have two different houses. That is what we practice currently. We have the Senate, and we have the reps. So they are basically saying that let's revert back to a unicameral. Let's just have. Yes, and I agree, and I think that this is going to be one of the most far-reaching sacrifices that they can make. Because if you scrap the Senate, for example, just imagine the costs that you are going to save.
Like
their elections, which is recurrent every 4 years, their allowances, their salaries,
What carries the chunk?
it carries the chunk. By the way, they've been able to, and I need to say it, the budget for the National Assembly itself, I think 50% of it has been satisfied. But it's not the case with, crucial sectors. For example, a lot of sectors are 2%, 3%, communications, health, So they have one of the highest budget performances. But it only, revolves around the personnel, their officers, their buildings, their cars, their salaries, their allowances. So if you are going to cut it down, if you are going to downsize it and delete one of them, I think it's going to be a far-reaching, but not just the financial aspect, the administrative aspect as well. We want to, for example, amend the Constitution, we want to pass laws, so you have to go through the House of Reps and then go through the Senate as well. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If you are saying that the 300 and whatever House of Reps that are there, if they don't have the if they don't have the intellectual capacity to make a decision on our behalf, then there is no point. So they should go. It doesn't make any sense to say after this house, go back to this house again, and then 2 over 3 of the state houses of assembly. It's too bureaucratic. It doesn't make any sense. It's too stretched. It doesn't make any sense. And then our resources is concentrated there as well. So I think that more than whatever noise that they are making, it's going to be one of the most far-reaching sacrifices. And I think that it's an opportunity for them to write their name in gold. So please, our dear legislators, please, this is an opportunity to really, let's celebrate you at least. I mean, you people have been insulted for a long time, For the great nation, let's say that, okay, these people, this senator and that senator were the ones who actually led this revolution, far-reaching revolution. So I think that
I don't think we'll have one single senator or a member House of Reps that will pass that.
Yeah, because they want to preserve themselves.
If I am to go for the protest, I'll make sure I carry a placard that says, scrap the Senate.
Mashallah, thank you.
Literal straight up word.
Yes, scrap the Senate.
The Senate.
The House of Reps is better because, it
And they
allows
seem
for...
more
Yes.
to relate with the people.
Yes, they are closer to
Senate
the
is just there for
people,
their
and then
pockets.
youths are, they have more chances to. But the Senate, half of them are former governors. Half of them, it doesn't make any sense.
It's like a retirement home.
It's a retirement And these people they represent one of the most successful Nigerians in terms of finances. They're already rich coming there, but then they come there and then you have to still fund them. And they don't do anything. They don't pass any serious far-reaching laws. In fact, our current Senate, and I have to say this, they're just an extension of the executive. Most of the bills that they have passed are executive bills. Even the minimum wage, it's Tinubu that sent it to them. The Student Loans Act, it was still Tinubu who did the modification of what Gbaja did previously and sent it to them. We have a National Assembly that doesn't even come up with anything of its own, and Akpabio said it anyway. Whatever the president wants, when they were talking about the fleets and they purchased it, he's ready to give it. So it essence, means that we don't have a legislature. Rubber stamp is Ahmed Lawan. This is an active extension of the. It's not just rubber stamp. This one they are actively, propagating the agenda of the executive. So it's a coup stamp or whatever. It's not rubber stamp. I think rubber stamp is even better. Wow. But they are rubber stamp and an active participants in the suppression of Nigerians that they ought to represent by the way, did you hear what Akpabio said yesterday? He said while they are protesting, we will be here eating. He speaks with so much, just so insensitive.
He doesn't. Yes. He's careless.
He's so careless. He's so reckless.
I remember. I recall what he said to the senator, Natasha. He said, "This is not a club." How do you even look at it? It was so sexist.
If you look at his history,
like the guy is annoying.
As the leader of the house.
He doesn't manage his words. He talks like a tout.
Sometimes it makes you look like there's this guy.
And then he's tyrannical as well.
In the Senate, so it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. He's
not even tyrannical. He's just careless. He's just
careless, but I say he's tyrannical because look at what happened with Ningi. Look at what happened with Ndume. Look at all of that. Look at what even happened with his own colleague that they are, in the same team, Bamidele, when he wanted to, make some arguments, he said no, they have to go on a recess, and he forced a recess on them, even though a lot of the senators, didn't agree, but he forced it on them, and he said if Senator Monguno, I think, should read the motion for the recess, and he just like a robot, he stood up and he did it. So you can see that there's a suppression of Nigerians, and that is why they have to go to the streets. Because if the legislature, who ought to be, the watchdog for the executive, who ought to communicate their pains to the executive, and also to pass laws and policies, that are going to protect and preserve them. If they have sold that their mandates and their rights, then it is only befitting that they bypass them and, hit the streets and confront them properly.
Judicial and constitutional reform.
But indeed, we need a constitutional review. But I think everything that has been discussed so far can be pegged into this constitutional review because all of it requires some form of constitutional amendments and improvements. So we need a constitutional review. And that was the argument that you made as well.
That was what I said earlier when we talked about the electoral reforms. At the end of the day, most of the things we are protesting because of, the reason for the protest, are things that are subject to constitutional review. If the Constitution is going to be reviewed, overhauled, or whatever, at the end of the day, you find out that problems are going to be taken care of in a more easier way. We are not going, for example, by the time you would want to do something, it will, just like Ibrahim said earlier, it will pass through the two-thirds of the state assembly, go to the House of Reps, then now finally go to the Senate. I feel the Senate should be scrapped. We don't need them. At the end of the day, they are taking maintaining the Senate is one of the reasons why we cannot even pay minimum wage. So you see, everything revolves around constitutional review. The Constitution should be reviewed. I think it's one of the most important things because even if you want to check a lot of issues to be addressed, at the end of the day, you would be like, why is the Nigerian Constitution like this? We should go back to the Constitution. A lot of times. That's it.
Reviewing the Constitution is okay, but I think one of the basic, major things that's been the failure of our democracy is lack of respect for the Constitution. Everybody does anything they want to do, but there's little respect for the Constitution. The review is needed. no doubt. But afterwards, let there be much respect to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let it be supreme. Let it reign above any other thing. Whether you're the president, you are whoever in Nigeria, if it is not in the Constitution, unless if there's this level of flexibility where you are given an option to do something differently, where you use your own head or your mind to, enact something or get something done right. But apart from that, respect for the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria should be taken into consideration.
I agree with him. You have to respect the rule of law. But I think it feeds back to, in fact, the history of our Constitution. I don't think that the Constitution was designed to be wholly respected. And I think it is the problem. And it's why we actually need a constitutional reform, not just a review, properly, a proper constitutional reform. Maybe it's time for us to actually come together and design for ourselves a system that we feel like is going to work, using our experience, using our history, using our reality. And I think that if that is achieved,
reality.
Yes,
that's the word.
And I think that if that is achieved, we will get more respect, adherence to constitution. But I think that constitutional reforms and judicial reforms are not exclusive of each other, because the judiciary is catered for in the Constitution. So when you have an overall constitutional review, I think that it applies to the judiciary as well. But the judicial aspect of our constitutional review and reform has to be really at the forefront of discussions, because without an independent judiciary, and I mean a truly independent judiciary, because we heard what the Minister of FCT, Wiki, said. He said he was going to build a court of appeals for us. He was going to build quotas for that. That already indicts the independence of our judiciary. The executive shouldn't be building our courts, or the judiciary should have their own independence budget where they can take care of all of these things. But that's just one aspect of it. But the judiciary itself, the appointment, the mode of appointment of the judiciary has been riddled with nepotism and corruption, and that is why we have not too competent judges around. But also the structure of our judiciary, for saying that the 774 local governments have to come to the same Supreme Court, with just 21 judges or whatever it is that the increment is, it doesn't make any sense. And that is why when you file an appeal at the Supreme Court today, or even the Court of Appeal, the earliest dates you can get maybe is in 2028. How is that justice? Wow. Maybe you already spent 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years at the trial court. So but then when it comes to political cases, the law is clear. They amended the Constitution. You have to do it within 180 days. So it flies from the trials up to the Supreme Court, and it gets dispensed with within a very short time. But when it comes to really matters that affect the common man, and that is why I say that the adage, the judiciary is the last hope of the common man, has been skewed and modified in Nigeria. The judiciary is the last hope of the aggrieved politician. That is my own. Yeah, that is my own. So we need a proper judicial review. We need a proper judicial reform in the country. The judiciary in the country as it is, it's not democratic. It has no democratic tenets, and sadly, it is why, in fact, we are having all these arguments about protests. Because even in Kenya here, the judiciary really helped the people, because when the police became when the police started becoming high-handed, I remember the Chief Justice of Kenya, he released or she released a circular, I can't remember agenda or his gender, a circular that says that, look, the human rights of Kenyans must be protected, and that it led to why the president had to even concede to some of their demands, because if the judiciary is not with the oppressive regime, then succor would come to the people. But if you look at Nigeria of the past, even during the military era, we had a more independent judiciary than we do today. People are always can poke at them though, but in comparison with what we have today, I don't think that we have a judiciary to be proud of, frankly, at all levels. So we need a total revamp of our judiciary, without a doubt.
Talking about the role of some of our ulamas and some of the pastors and other religious leaders, a case in point, some of the sheikhs that came out and were trying to downplay saying protest is haram in Islam. And I came to think of it, are we practicing Sharia law or this is democracy? If we were practicing Sharia law, I would understand that protest is haram because we are under Sharia. But now that we are not under Sharia, we are, and there are sentiments. There are times they will tell you to go out and protest, and there are times that they will tell you protest is haram. Does it come with seasons? I don't even get.
Yeah, there's selective amnesia and cognitive dissonance in Nigeria generally. Yes, yes, but I'm sure that if you should mainstream LGBTQI, I think that the scholars themselves will hit the road themselves. I think that they have certain things that they can't compromise. So of course it exposes their hypocrisy. But I think that generally the problem that we are having, especially with our scholarly class, is that I think that they have failed to really amalgamated their knowledge of their various faiths with the system that is Nigeria. I don't think that they understand the constitutional democracy we practice and the fact that you can't bring an alien regime, and impose it on the people when, for example, the governments, they are the government today because of a democratic process. Protest is a democratic process. So if protest is haram, then democracy necessarily is haram, voting necessarily is haram. So you can't just pick and choose. But the people who even sat down and designed the system, they understood that we had a Sharia law, and that is why they incorporated the Sharia into the constitution, but they said that it is limited to personal affairs and personal law. So if they have any problem with that, if they want the Sharia to be the main law in the country, then they probably should join the protesters so that we can have a constitutional, whatever it is, and we can, properly, and they can, put forth their arguments. But to bring a completely alien position into a system, and then because they also fail to analyze it within the system, and that's why I say that if you are going to tell me about Nigeria, about contemporary issues in Nigeria, and your analysis does not contain the reality of Nigeria, does not include the constitution and the respective laws of Nigeria, I feel like you have already lost me, because I don't think how that cannot be befitting. It's not genuine, it's not sincere. But for scholars to come, by the way, it was actually these scholars who did the initial PR for this protest. Exactly. Before they came out and started singing that protest was haram, I didn't even know that there was a protest brewing. It was the scholars, it was at the back of their initial campaign against the protest that I realized that, indeed that there's a protest. But don't forget that some of these scholars were also advocates for the Muslim tickets that we have today. Right, so if their role is obfuscated, and I think that they are also dealing with an identity crisis. They don't know whether they should go fully join politics fully or not. But if you join the field, if you campaign for a candidate, if you are going to spread the rhetorics of a political party or the establishment, you should also expect the opprobrium and ridicule and contempt of the people, because that is what it comes with the territory. It comes with the terrain. But if they are going to limit themselves to matters of faith and stuff like that, I think that they will have a soft landing. But if they come into our site, respectfully, you are going to undermine anybody. I don't think that as long as the law is clear on an issue, I'm going to undermine your position, I'm going to undermine you regardless of who you are. That is just my own stance. I'm Puritan in terms of the law of the land. I don't think that you can do anything around it, because even they are subject to the same law, and that is why they have to run to the president. And they said that they went to the president and they spoke to the president on our behalf. First of all, they didn't speak on my behalf. This is the constitution. I know the respective channels to speak with the government, and one of which is protest. And I'm saying that I'm going to protest, so they can't come and say they want to hijack it. And what did they tell the government? They didn't tell us what they told the government. They didn't tell us what the government said. They said that the government said we should be patient and wait. So I don't think that there's enough details as to the respective roles that they are playing. And let me just say this as just as an aside. I know a scholar, he grew up in my area. Today he's fully, successful. But how did he become successful? By successful, I mean that, material success, his houses, and stuff like that. But how did he actually become successful? He was through successive governments. So they brought him in, they said, okay, committee of scholars, so that they can regulate stuff, and then started paying him salaries. In fact, when our current governor was elected, he even held, a walima in his own private house for him. So how am I not supposed to take you as just a fourth agent of the government? Why should I respect what you are going to say? Because basically you're funded by these people. And lastly, you see the controversy that we're having with NACON, this Hajj Commission. Yeah. The leader is now saying, the chairman is now saying that in fact the 90 billion that they speak of didn't come to the commission. So what happened? What didn't happen? Why did they even have to pay 90 billion naira to subsidize Hajj? You can't subsidize PMS, you can't subsidize education, you are subsidizing Hajj. And by the way, the people, who benefits from the subsidies are, well-to-do Nigerians, because for Hajj, you already must have paid at least millions of naira, so they'll come and subsidize. So you even have millions of naira, so hunger is not even your problem. Yeah. But they are still subsidizing you all the same. And if you look at the committees for all these pilgrimages, it's still these same scholars who, so they get paid by the government to take care of these affairs. So for them to come out and say that they want to tell us protest is haram, for me, I just don't pay them any mind. I take lectures from them when it comes to affairs of faith, but when it comes to, the relationship between the governed and their leaders, I don't consider what they say at all, frankly. I just relegate and undermine and expose them to opprobrium and ridicule. Frankly, that's just, thank God this is black and white, so there's no gray. I don't do gray, I don't do me-do. It's either I'm here or I'm there. Yes.
Well, I just, this is not the first time religion is being weaponized against the people. But what is appalling here is how the guts they have. This government, this current government, they have guts. You know what? They're daring the people using religion. And they're doing it in such a corrupt and shameful way that you can see it and know that this is not the truth. You are weaponizing this. Look at during the election, before the election, how he was able to... these are not priests in the first place. These people were not clergies in any way. You are campaigning, you are undermining a religion. And look at how they're trying to, don't even try to make it look like, you said something about these religious leaders not knowing much about the religion, lack of proper interpretation. But the truth is, some of them, they know it. Greed. See, I haven't been to church completely in the last 2 years, 2.5 years. I've not been to church completely. I've never been. I stopped going to church. I go to church because of family. Maybe they have something. But enter church, say I go service. Since 2012, I stopped doing that. If I'm dealing with you and then you use the name of God, the name of Jesus, the name of Allah, I become very, very careful with you. In fact, I start dining with you from a long distance because these people are just waiting for the opportunity to use God to cheat you, to use God to scam you, to use God to do whatever they just want to have their way using religion. Now, this is where, when we talk about the Constitution, this is where we need to take a look at a country like Senegal. Majority of people don't know that Senegal is a Muslim majority country. A lot of people don't know. But when it is Christmas, you will see everybody go buy clothes and celebrate. Whether you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, you're a traditionalist, you go out there and celebrate Christmas. When it is Salah, they do the same thing. The traditionalists, when they have their own festivities, everybody goes out there. This is because the government was able to clamp down on extremism of religion. Using religion extremely is not going to see that. As a matter of fact, if they tried this in Senegal, like using priests, to say you are getting, and people get to know, you're not going to find it funny with the Senegalese people. Religion is personal race for them. It is a personal thing. We've refused to personalize religion. Instead, we weaponize it in Nigeria. So, and then talking about traditional leaders, those ones,
they are handicapped anyway by the nature of the system. Frankly, don't have a choice. Even the common governor can just muzzle you out.
Do you get?
Yes.
Yes, it's not religion religion could be used, but poverty has been used against them because it is the poorest of the poor most of the times, and they go to them, they use whatever, and once they bring out, these guys have the money, so and then they start using force on the people. So they have a role to play.
Yeah, but for traditional institutions, the government pays them directly.
But the government pays them directly. So
they fund them, so...
They don't have much to do.
They don't have
Look
much
at what's
to say.
happening in Kano. Look at what happened in Kaduna State, where the former governor balkanized some of the traditional institutions. You go pick somebody, and the people say, this is our tradition. It's not yours.
It's not yours.
This is what we do. It's not yours. You go and remove this person and bring this person, and they say, we don't like this person. We don't want this person. It's shameful what happened in Kano. The Emir of Kano used to be like one of the most powerful monarchs in Africa. And in Nigeria, or in Nigerian election, when the monarch, the Emir of Kano and the Sultan of Sokoto, if they come together and say, this is who you guys are supporting, this is who we are going to support. But look at what's happening in both Kano and Sokoto at the same time. You know, the governor of Sokoto, he's trying to remove the Sultan. Where has the position of the Sultanate been embarrassed like this before? Look at how Lamido Sanusi was, you know, treated by someone like Ganduje, an uncharismatic man in the first place. So these are some of the things we need to look at. These guys have roles to play, but this is also where the people need to learn about their traditions, customs, and whatever it is, and stand firm by it. The same thing played out in Gombe State, where it led to religious and ethnic, it took religious and ethnic dimensions.
Because of their diversity.
Because of their diversity. So these guys have roles to play, but how do they strengthen themselves in such a way that the traditional, the government or the people in power don't come and take over and have control over them?
Yes, so back to my leader, so Yusuf Bala Osman, my mentor, you know, may Allah rest his soul. So he chronicled the manipulation of religion. He looked at the Sharia debates. He looked at Murtala's assassination, and you can see clearly that even the drafters of the Constitution, and this feeds back to, you know, the constitutional amendments. Even the drafters of the Constitution didn't you know, want the religion to be free of manipulation, and that is why in Section 10 they say that the state shall not adopt any religion as a state religion. But it doesn't suffice to say that the state cannot adopt, because basically what you're saying is the state can interact with them, the state can associate with them, can identify with them, can do anything whatsoever, but
not adopt.
Just don't adopt. And you know, this has led to the problem that continues today, because you know, the state and our religious institutions are one way or the other different arms of the same body, so they are able to manipulate them. And what is manipulation? You get somebody to do a thing without knowing, you know, what your own objectives are. So I think that even before the people, our own religious leaders are being manipulated, sadly, because if you go to the president's office on behalf of your, you know, followers, and then, you know, you come back singing the lyrics of the president that was present even before you went in, and you didn't achieve anything. You went there and you were gaslighted and manipulated yourself, and then you are now you're now back to. That's why I say that they are just maybe special advisors on media to the presidency, because they are echoing the same thing that, you know, the presidency were echoing. So I think that our constitutional amendments our constitution needs to go a step further to say that no, you can't identify, you can't associate, your freedom to practice your religion is protected, is guaranteed, right? But the state, the country itself, has nothing to do with it. Nobody's going to subsidize any Hajj or any pilgrimage to Jerusalem or whatever, right? That is not our concern at the minute. Of course, I know that a lot of people are going to disagree, but then we live in a society of diverse societies, so we have to always go for what is best for the collective and not just our biases.
And that secularity of Nigeria,
it has to be established.
Yeah, it has to be established. People have to know.
I think the scholars already know what the protest will do, and so they decided to use religion, obviously, as their yardstick to, you know, divide the minds of the youths, because basically it's the youths that are taken to the street and now they are saying it's haram. Obviously, most of the Muslims who will not want to, you know, offend their religion and what they practice will, you know, opt out of the protest. They know the power that the protest holds. They know what the protest can do, and so they decided to go through that route, because they know, you know, I told you Nigerians are emotional. They went through the route of religion just to, you know, change the minds of most of the Muslims who will come out openly to say, okay, I am joining this protest and I'm going to go for it. So they already know.
I'm sorry, unfortunately, it's not just the Muslims that
even the pastors came out, bishops came out,
pastors came out. Pastors have been mobilized.
Yes.
So that is where it gets.
So it's a WhatsApp group.
Yes.
Exactly. That's
So
exactly
suddenly
what
all
it is.
religions have the same
You know.
tenets.
So they say you go.
Traditionalists have come out already.
Because I can see the current president is not in
Yes.
support.
Suddenly,
The current president came out, he said people shouldn't protest.
These protests even in Islam, it's not a time-stamped, you know, conventional, agreed, you know, uniformly agreed position. You have to still, you know, bring in some, you know, jurisprudential sophistry to express the point. Yes, so it's not as if it's a grounded rule that is clear-cut in the Quran. You know, so it's just so it just adds to the.
Also, Sheikh Gumi come out to say, protest is not haram.
Yes, so
He
there are a lot
came
of
out.
scholars who are
I'm
against
not
it.
much of his fan, but I think I agree with him on this one for the first time.
And I don't think there's anything in the Bible written against protest. Like,
Protest.
I don't know what
There's
they're
bare
going to tell
examples
us.
of protest
In the Bible?
Like, what are you trying to tell us that?
Lots of protests. in the
There's
Bible.
more examples of protest.
Protest
Even in
than-
the Quran and in Sirah, in Islamic history, there are so many examples of different forms of protest.
They just
Yes.
they just feel
But they
like
don't even do the needful in terms of proper analysis. What types of
Yes.
protest is haram? What the nature? What the extent of the protest is haram? Because protest is an umbrella term for a lot of things. So, but when they limit it to riots, the fact that protests might lead to riot, and that is basically the etymology. In terms of etymology, that's what zanga means, right? Like really riots. Zanga, I don't think it represents protest.
Yeah, it doesn't
its
represent
full
protest.
element.
That's why
So
when
I'm
people
saying,
are talking about
as
zanga-zanga-
scholars, you can do better.
they know.
At least expand the literature.
So this is where it starts now. My words to everybody out there on the street. When you go to church or a mosque and you hear anybody say, don't protest, please start the protest with him. Just stand up, carry your Bible, and move on. I think I did that once in the church. The pastor was just preaching. He was going, and then he went off. And it was more of like an attack on me and people around that knew he was talking to me indirectly. I carried my Bible, I did, and I was out.
That is a
So if anybody says don't go and protest, please start with him. Start the
valid
protest
form
there
of
and then with the
protest.
person.
Peacefully. That is a valid, peaceful protest. Absolutely valid.
Before we go, let's hear the last words from our guests.
My message to Nigerians is simple, black and white. If you are for the protest, go out and protest. And protest generally doesn't really mean you should go out. Lending a voice is also protest. You should abide by the rules of the land. You shouldn't get involved with thugs. When there is an uprising or when there is riot or the protest is taking a turn, know when to go back. There are other ways you can lend your voice. Like I said earlier, through social media, you can support protesters. You should always abide by the law so that you would not be found wanted.
My message to Nigerians, for those of us who are going to come out for this protest, please be careful. Do not constitute nuisance. We are going on a peaceful protest just to air our views and to create awareness. And Nigerians who are on the fence, we cannot afford to be on the fence. It's either you are in or you are out. We are doing this for a better Nigeria, the Nigeria for our children and our children's children.
Whether you are for this protest or you are against it, just follow your heart. I'm not saying anybody should be forced to attend this protest. But then, if your conscience says, look, this is the right time for us to go out, please go out and protest. But then, the most important thing I think you should be doing is learn to do the right things. The change we're looking for is not like some rocket science out there. When we conscientize ourselves, when we have consciences, when we try to do things right, trust me, the Nigeria we're looking for is, something that is achievable. So it starts with each and every one of us to be responsible.
My message to Nigerians and Nigeria generally is that whether you are for or against the protest, we should all remember that we are subject to the law, and the Constitution is clear that we have a duty to uphold the Constitution. And so it is very important to recognize the right of Nigerians to protest. You can advise them on how to go about it. You can advise them on, the peaceful conducts that they are going to have to embody, and the way how to conduct themselves and how to interact with the government. But you have to establish their right at all times to protest. And I feel like this is also the time where everybody it doesn't benefit anybody to be indifferent or be in the sideline. You should join in either in the conversation, even if you are not going to be in the streets, to also help us speak to the relevant agencies on the side of the government to ensure that they protect the protesters and also protect the general public and protect our infrastructure, because by law the duty to ensure that peaceful protests are being carried out in any democratic country is on the government and law enforcement. And it's also important for the law enforcement agencies to know that they cannot delegate their duties, so they should shun using third-party agents that are not recognized by law to see if to disperse protesters or to sabotage protests. So it is very important for all of us to obey the law. I see that there are certain people already saying that they are going to check the protesters and prevent the protesters. For example, in the South, I can't remember, it's Asari Dokubo, he said that, people have the right to protest, but he also has the right to resist. No, that is not true. He doesn't have the right to resist anybody's right to protest. Only the police can manage and conduct and contain a protest. And I implore all of us to obey the law regardless of the position that we are in. Thank you.
Black and white, black and white. Truth no they hide, we go set things right. Black and white, black and white. Clarity in all my shades tonight.